The anatomy of a financial comeback. How history's greatest figures rebuilt wealth from zero. The illusion of permanent loss. There is a specific kind of panic that strikes when you look at your bank account and realize the floor has dropped out beneath you. Whether it is a failed business, a mountain of bad debt, a market crash, or years wasted pursuing the wrong path, rock bottom feels remarkably absolute. It feels like the end of the book. But history teaches us something radically different. Wealth is not a bucket of money that runs dry. True wealth is a mental framework, a discipline, and an adaptability system. Money lost can be remade. Empires destroyed can be rebuilt. When you study the financial history of the world's most resilient figures, you realize that rock bottom is almost never a dead end. It is simply the reset button. The difference between those who stay broke and those who achieve legendary financial comebacks isn't luck, capital, or market timing. It comes down to three structural shifts: relentless accountability, rapid skill adaptation, and aggressive asset reallocation. To understand how to execute your own financial reset, we don't look at modern get-rich-quick hacks. We look at the historical blueprints of people who lost everything, stared financial ruin in the face, and engineered massive comebacks. Part only the cost of arrogance and the reset. Henry Ford in the late 1800s. Long before the Ford Motor Company was a household name, Henry Ford was a failed entrepreneur. In 1899, backed by wealthy investors, Ford launched the Detroit Automobile Company. He was brilliant, confident, and obsessed with perfection. But he was also completely disconnected from the financial reality of production. He spent years tinkering with prototypes, over-engineering parts, and spending investor capital without delivering vehicles to market. In 1901, his investors lost patience, forced a liquidation, and bankrupted the company. Ford was stripped of his reputation, his factory, and his capital. By all metrics, his financial career in automotive engineering was over before it began. Most people who fail at their first major venture carry that debt and embarrassment like a permanent anchor. They retreat into safety. But Ford did not treat failure as a verdict on his ability. He treated it as a diagnostic on his strategy. He realized two critical financial truths. Products don't make money. Systems make money. Perfectionism is a luxury that destroys cash flow. When Ford launched his second attempt, he stripped away all vanity. He abandoned complex, low-margin custom builds and locked his focus onto a single, high-output mechanism, the assembly line. By reducing production time per vehicle from 12 hours to 93 minutes, he lowered costs, dominated the market, and generated an unprecedented level of individual wealth. The financial mindset lesson: a financial setback is almost always a failure of execution, not a failure of potential. If you are currently facing a setback, stop mourning the lost capital and audit your system. What unnecessary expenses were you maintaining out of pride? What inefficient daily habits bled your energy and cash flow? The moment you eliminate vanity from your financial decisions, your comeback begins. Park rebuilding from negative capital. Abraham Lincoln. Before Abraham Lincoln saved the Union, he was buried under a pile of personal debt so severe that his local community referred to it as the national debt. In 1832, a young Lincoln partnered with a friend named William Berry to buy a general store in New Salem, Illinois. They purchased the inventory entirely on credit. It was a classic financial mistake: high overhead, zero cash reserves, and an unreliable business partner. Berry suffered from severe alcoholism and routinely neglected the business, while Lincoln was overly generous, granting store credit to customers who had no intention of paying. Within months, the store failed. Shortly after, Berry died, leaving Lincoln legally responsible for the entire combined debt of $1. In the 1830s. $1,000 was a staggering fortune, far more than the average worker earned in a decade. Local creditors sued Lincoln. They seized his horse, his surveying equipment, and his personal belongings. He was left with zero assets, negative net worth, and no clear career path. Lincoln could have fled west or declared moral bankruptcy. Instead, he made a calculated choice. He transformed his debt into a leverage point for personal discipline. He took on dual jobs, working as a surveyor by day and studying law by candlelight at night. Every spare penny went toward paying off his creditors. It took him over 15 years of continuous, disciplined payments to clear the debt. But that grueling process did something profound. It forged a reputation for ironclad integrity. That exact reputation, on the stage, became his greatest asset, opening doors to state politics and eventually the presidency. The financial mindset lesson: your debt does not define your destiny, but your attitude toward your obligations defines your character. When you are deep in the red, your primary objective is not just paying down numbers on a screen. It is building the iron discipline required to manage wealth once you possess it. The habits you form while digging yourself out of a $10,000 hole are the exact habits that will protect your first $100,000. Part 3. The Complete Pivot and Asset Realignment. Colonel Harland Sanders. Perhaps no story illustrates the late-stage financial comeback quite like Harland Sanders. By age 65, Sanders was not a success. He had spent his life cycling through a string of modest jobs and businesses: steam engine stoker, insurance salesman, filling station operator, and motel owner. In his 50s, he operated a relatively successful roadside diner in Corbin, Kentucky, famous for its pan-fried chicken. Then, catastrophe struck. In the early 1950s, Interstate 75 was constructed, bypassing Corbin entirely. Overnight, customer traffic plummeted to zero. The value of his property collapsed. Sanders was forced to auction off his business at a massive loss to satisfy his debts. At 65 years old, the age when most people prepare for retirement, Sanders found himself living in his car, relying on a meager $105 monthly Social Security check. He had two choices: accept poverty as his final chapter or leverage the one unique asset he had left, his proprietary fried chicken recipe and cooking technique. Sanders packed his car with pressure cookers, bags of secret spice blend, and a suit. He drove across the country, sleeping in his back seat and pitching restaurant owners. His offer was simple: I will cook my chicken for your customers. If sales increase, you pay me a small royalty per piece sold. He faced rejection over 1,000 times. Restaurant after restaurant turned him down. But Sanders wasn't selling food. He was franchising a high-margin system. Eventually, a restaurant owner in Utah agreed. Within a decade, Kentucky Fried Chicken expanded into a global powerhouse, and Sanders sold his stake for millions, becoming a global icon of wealth built after 60. The financial mindset lesson: you are never too old, and it is never too late to execute a financial pivot. Most people fail to recover from loss because they cling to dead assets, a dying career, an unprofitable degree, or a failed industry. When the market shifts, move with it. Audit your unique skills, package them into scalable value, and refuse to let past years dictate your future net worth. Part 4: 3 Laws of the Financial Comeback. When you analyze these historical arcs, a distinct 3-step strategy emerges for anyone looking to rebuild their financial life today. 1. Stop bleeding and eliminate financial vanity. First step out of any financial hole is stopping the hemorrhage. Liquidate useless liabilities. Cut expenses that exist only to project an image of success you haven't earned yet. If you are broke, act like it today so you don't have to live like it tomorrow. 2. Convert time into high-value skills when you have no capital left to invest. Your only remaining leverage is time and focus. Lincoln spent his nights reading law. Sanders spent his days pitching owners. Double down on learning skills that command high market return: sales, financial literacy, technical trades, digital systems, or negotiation. 3. Shift from consumption to asset accumulation. Broke mindset measures success by monthly spending capacity. The wealthy mindset measures success by cash flowing assets. Every dollar you salvage from your income must be pointed toward building security and emergency fund, debt paydown, index funds, or business equity. Conclusion: your next chapter financial loss is brutal. It strips away confidence, causes sleepless nights, and convinces you that your best days are behind you. But remember this: an empty bank account is a temporary condition. A broken mindset is a choice. Henry Ford went from bankrupt tinkerer to industrial titan. Abraham Lincoln went from penniless debtor to the leader of a nation. Colonel Sanders went from living in his car at 65 to building an empire. Their stories prove that your current balance sheet is not your final score, it is merely the starting line for your comeback. Stop looking at what you lost, start executing the work in front of you, and build your financial reality piece by piece. Asterisk.